the game. You don't play to just play it. Come after me. I'm a man. I'm for you. Can't wait. Let's go.
Good morning and welcome. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. Thank you to all of us who are making us a part of your Monday morning, whether it be on YouTube or Facebook or over on Roku TV. Thanks in part to Northeast Streaming Sports Productions. We are happy that you are joining us here on this football recap Monday. I am Chris, and of course, that is Mo. Mo, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing great. Lots of great football games, a few surprises, but I'm excited to get into it.
Mo, as always, every Monday, we start off the same way. We start off breaking down Sunday Night Football, and it's not our fault that they keep putting the New York Jets on Sunday Night Football, and they're just making us talk about them on Monday mornings. We didn't do that, guys. That's not what we did to you, okay? So let me get that out of the way first. Mo, I sat there last night, and you know I have a love-hate relationship with Chris Collinsworth. I sat there for 3.5 quarters and listened to him beam over Zach Wilson and how Zach Wilson is using his legs now, and Zach Wilson has a new wrinkle to his game, and we are seeing a new version of Zach Wilson. And then, Mo, in the end, it was Zach Wilson, right? Game on the line. The defense kept the game in it. Zach had an opportunity to go down there and make a big play at the end of the game, and he turned the ball over. And that is what Zach Wilson has done this season. That is what Zach Wilson has done his entire career. And I'll give credit, Mo, where credit is due. I appreciated the fact that there were about 7 or 8 times last night that instead of forcing a ball, Zach Wilson took off and ran with it. That is improvement. That is him taking a step in the right direction. I would much rather see him and some of those runs were really positive chunk plays. I would much rather see Zach Wilson run the football than force a ball into a situation that's a 50-50 ball, because those don't usually go his way. That being said, this offense has not scored a touchdown in 12 quarters. That is 3 games. 3 games they have not scored a touchdown. Their last touchdown was the first quarter against the New York Giants. And if you count overtime, it's been like 12.5 quarters since they've scored a touchdown. They had good field position the entire first half. They were in the red zone multiple times. Their defense at one point put them deep into Las Vegas territory in the first half, and they couldn't put the ball into the end zone. For me, Mo, this is just another example of an elite defense handing Zach Wilson an opportunity to win a game, and him once again showing he isn't capable of doing it. I don't know what else to say at this point. I don't know who is out there supporting Zach Wilson this morning. I don't know how Jet fan feels about Zach Wilson this morning, but it's literally the same story every week. The defense plays great. They give Zach Wilson the opportunity to win the game. He makes a dumb mistake late. That's where I am. I don't know what else to say about it anymore.
You could write the book on the Jets season, and that would be it. It would be that the defense is great. Zach Wilson will do just enough right to give you hope, and then he will crush your soul when it's time to decide whether the game is won or lost. I don't want to kill Zach Wilson. Not going to do that. I honestly, watching the game, I actually thought he played, for the most part, one of his better games. If you're grading him on a scale, I thought he actually played fairly well up until they needed to go ahead and win the football game, and he needed to make a play. And he did the things that we've seen him do time and time again. And once again, you're looking at that defense, and you see the frustration in their faces. You see the frustration in the receivers' faces. And I'm sure Robert Saleh, I didn't watch the post-game interview, but I'm sure he made a great speech about how much Zach's their guy going forward, and they're going to ride with Zach because they believe in Zach and he's a gamer. All the positives. It's what you expect from your head coach. But you did something last week to start last week out, and I think it always will apply, right? Acceptance, right? Knowing what you're not going to be. If Zach Wilson is going to be your quarterback going forward, acceptance is you're not going to make the playoffs.
And Mo, that leads us into our next point, which is during the broadcast last night. A couple of interesting things that this popped up randomly during the Sunday Night Football broadcast, where I had to actually rewind it and go back. The first is not Jets related, so we'll touch on that first. And the first has to do with Josh Jacobs. And it was just in the middle of a random Raiders drive where the telecast drops the nugget that Josh Jacobs previously, under the previous regime, he would go to them every week and he would give them 4 or 5 plays from the previous game or the previous couple of games that he thought, he ran really well or worked really, really well on the field. And he would make a suggestion, hey, can we find a way to work these plays in this week? And almost every week, none of those plays would make it into the game plan for that upcoming game. And the broadcast talked about how this past 2 weeks with the new head coach, with McDaniels out of there, that almost all his plays that he suggests are making it into the upcoming plan for that game. And that as a result, he's a happier player. He feels like he's more involved in game planning. He feels they're running plays that fit him better. And the broadcast said he hasn't felt this way since John Gruden was the head coach, because when John Gruden was the head coach, he would take the players' opinions and the players' say, and where he thought it was appropriate, he would work it into the game planning. And more often than not, the players did have their fingerprints all over the game plan as far as some of the plays being called. Now, Mo, you can look at that 2 ways. You can look at that as, Josh, you are a running back. Your job is to run the plays that the coach calls for you or the offensive coordinator calls for you. Go do that. You're not the quarterback. It's not your job to be involved that way. And even some quarterbacks might get told, you are the quarterback. You run the plays that I call for you. You go do your job. Don't worry about scheming and play design and all that. That's not your role. So, Mo, it's very easy to look at that situation and say, it was great that John Gruden allowed you to do that. And it's great that Antonio Pierce allows you to do that. But Josh McDaniel doesn't need to allow you to do that. He is the head coach. He doesn't need the players coming up. It's okay if you want to suggest something. I hope he would have an open door for you to make those suggestions. But he's not even required to do that. It's his job to make sure that the product he puts on the field is a winning product, and whether he wants your opinion or not, or he takes your advice or not. Now, obviously, we know the end result. It wasn't a winning product. It didn't go well for him. But Mo, what was your take on that aspect of it? Is that obviously when you say it in the prism it was set in, it is a dig at the previous regime. But does it have to be a dig at the previous regime?
I don't think it has to be a dig. I think that what Antonio Pierce is doing is he's trying to say he wants the players all totally invested, right, in what they're doing going forward. And like you said, if they call a 62 blast and that's the play they call, then Josh Jacobs, that's the play we're going to run. But if Josh Jacobs says to you, like, I'm not really the kind of back that sweeps don't benefit me. I'm not really fast. I don't have the speed to really be a sweep back. I'm at my best going downhill in an I formation or in a power set. That's him telling you what he's best at. Run some plays that play to his strengths. So I think it's great that Antonio Pierce is open to the idea that, wait a minute, this guy is better at running crossing routes, or this guy is better at running off tackle. I'm fine with that. I don't think it has to be a dig. I just think it's the change of philosophy and coaching style.
And then, Mo, the other thing we learned last night during the telecast is, and it's funny how they led into it. They led into it by saying usually Aaron Rodgers is out there pregame throwing footballs around, and he wasn't this week, which to no one's surprise, because after last week, we didn't think we were going to see him out there whipping footballs around. Right. And then they went further into it. They were like, and we asked him about it. And he said, I just wasn't feeling it this week. To which, again, you can read into it and be like, we know why you weren't out there flinging footballs around. But then they dropped the nugget of he's looking at a mid-December return. That is apparently his target to return to the season. And if you look at their schedule, here is how that sets up, Mo. The New York Jets are currently 4-5. A mid-December return would be December 17th. That is their mid-December game. It is in Miami against the Miami Dolphins. They have 4 games prior to that. And those 4 games are Buffalo, Miami, Atlanta, and Houston. I don't think they can win any of those games besides the Atlanta game. I don't see them beating Buffalo. I don't see them beating Miami. And honestly, I know, and we'll talk about Houston later on in the show. I don't see them beating Houston. I think Houston can be a winnable game, but I don't think they're going to have the offense to stop Houston. They're not going to put up enough points to beat Houston. So let's say they win one of those games. Now they're 5-8 with 4 games to go. Are you bringing Aaron Rodgers back in a situation where you'd have to win all 4 games to maybe make a wild card position? Because that's what it would be. If you're 5-8 and Aaron Rodgers comes back, you have to go 9-8. You're not going to get into the playoffs in the AFC with a losing record. And at 9-8, I don't even know if you're going to get into the playoffs. You might need 10 wins in the AFC to get into the playoffs. But let's say that when he comes back with 4 games to go, you do the math, and 9 wins could get you in if other things fall your way. Do you play in the last 4 games?
I wouldn't do it. I just wouldn't do it. I really think that you have to factor in, yes, their offensive line struggles at times to pass protect, but more importantly, Aaron Rodgers is getting ready to hit 40 years old, and the body doesn't heal as fast, right? What if something catastrophic happens and now he's out all of next year? I wouldn't risk that. I know the goal is to win a Super Bowl, and that's why he's there. It just isn't meant to be this year. I don't think it's meant to be. And rushing back from that type of injury, knowing full well that you're going to have to be able to extend plays. He's going to have to use his legs. I just think you're asking a lot of his body to rush back like that. I would not risk his future. You brought him there to win a Super Bowl. You can gear up in the offseason. You can bolster up that offensive line, and you can have Aaron Rodgers start next season 100% healthy.
And Mo, those last 4 games would be Miami, Cleveland, Washington, New England. Obviously, division rival in Miami. That's going to be a competitive game. Cleveland has a really good defense. That would be a competitive game. They could probably handle Washington. And then I think they can beat New England. But you're going against a Bill Belichick defense at the end of the season. And what would be a must-win game, because all 4 of these would be must-win games. So I feel like it's a tough situation to bring back your 40-year-old quarterback off a huge injury, and you're basically saying, hey, the playoffs start today. We have 4 playoff games coming up. We have to win all of them just to get into the actual playoffs.
Right.
Just to maybe. I think, Mo, I would even feel different if it was guaranteed. If it was a guarantee he wins all 4 of those games and it gets you into the playoffs, I might even be like, all right, let's roll it. But once we lose, we shut him down. He's not. If we lose to Miami, his first game back, that's it. If we beat Miami and we lose to Cleveland next week, that's it. We'll shut him down. He got some play in. He tried to get us to the playoffs. It didn't work out. Let's get healthy and we'll move on. But Mo, it won't even be that, because 4 games to go with you 3 games under 500, they would need so much to fall their way, most likely, to get into the playoffs. You might win all 4 and not get there. So I just think that the risk reward in that situation, given everything that Aaron Rodgers has gone through this season with his health and the potential of what it could damage for next season, I just think it's not worth the risk, in my opinion.
It's not worth it. Not if the goal is to win a Super Bowl. It's not going to happen this year. And let's be real. I think that whatever happens with the Jets the rest of this season, this probably will be Zach Wilson's last season on the Jets.
It's shaping up that way.
It's not a dig at Zach Wilson. I'm just simply saying that going forward, because you have a 40-year-old quarterback, you're probably going to want a more capable backup quarterback.
All right. Right now, we are going to welcome JG on the show. We got some Major League Baseball stuff to talk about, and we're going to let JG chime in on the Zach Wilson, Aaron Rodgers situation. JG, welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, good morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Hey, morning, JG.
Hey, morning, JG. All right, JG. Tell us a little bit about the Zach Wilson situation.
I'll say, like, and kind of what I commented just now on while y'all were talking about it is, if Wilson does enough to lead the Jets to where they are in potential to make a playoff push, and they turn it over to Rodgers, again, and the conversation is Wilson's not the guy for the future. Like, he's not the future of the Jets. That's why they brought Rodgers in, because Rodgers is the now, and they're going to move on from Wilson. If you turn it over to Rodgers after, let's say Wilson goes on a run and wins the next few games, and they're right in the thick of things in the playoff push, and you turn the keys right back to Rodgers coming off the Achilles injury, you're telling Wilson you're not here next year. There's no way you can keep him next year because you just demoralized the morale of Wilson as a quarterback. That he did everything he could. You threw him to the fire. You threw him to the wolves through this season and just say, keep us afloat. Again, there was no perspective of playoffs. They just basically said, you're our guy now because you have to be, because Rodgers is out. And you threw him to the wolves and just say, do what you can. He kept the ship afloat and gets you a chance to make a playoff push. All right, thank you for what you did for us this year. We're going to give it right back to Rodgers, who, we don't know if he's going to blow the Achilles again because we've never seen anybody come back as quick from an Achilles injury as he's doing right now. You're having to move on. You have to move on. You're going to draft a quarterback, and I think that's probably the plan anyway that the Jets were going to do is they're going to probably draft a quarterback in 2024, which is a great quarterback class coming in, or at least potentially a great quarterback class coming in. But Wilson is not the guy at that point, even more so than what they've already signaled, what the players have already kind of signaled in the frustration of how he's performed. The only person who's really believed in Wilson right now is Robert Saleh. And if he goes to Wilson and says, hey, you did a great job giving us a chance, but we're going to Rodgers now coming back from this Achilles injury because we think he is our best opportunity to make the playoffs, even though you got us to this point, you're signaling to Wilson, you're going to be a free agent next year. Just be prepared for that.
No, and I couldn't agree more. And JG, let's jump to some Major League Baseball stuff. Let's start with Buster Olney. Buster Olney came out and he's blowing up this Juan Soto thing. First, Juan Soto was going to be traded in the offseason. Then there was no chance he was going to be traded in the offseason, according to his agent. Then he was going to certainly be traded by the trade deadline. And now Buster Olney is reporting 100% chance he is moved before the season begins. JG, what the hell is going on with Juan Soto?
That's a great question. I mean, it's almost like a little an argument, a debate between Boris and Olney right now. Who's going to be right? Scott Boras knows what he's wanting to do for his client. Because again, Boras wants him in free agency. Because they know the trade happens, as I kind of said to you guys last week, a trade happens, the team that trades him is going to push for an extension. Boras doesn't want that. He wants Soto in the open market because that dictates a bidding war. And the bidding war means the most money for your client, which is what Scott Boras is all about, which that's his job as an agent. I think the Padres do want to move on, though. I think it's kind of countering what I said last week. And the more I looked into it after I said, because I said last week to you guys, I don't think the Padres are going to get anything really close to what they gave up. So what's the point of trading him now? I'm going to essentially be hypocritical on what I said about that, because now the more I look back and think about it, have you gotten your return on investment for Soto currently? Well, no, he had a good year. But not what he's done with not the year that he did with the Nationals. He has not played to that level, so far. He's played well, but you gave up a lot for him. So could you move on and be able to recoup something for him and be able to use money elsewhere? Of course you can. So do the Padres want to move on? Maybe. That's probably where Olney's getting this MO. Where he's kind of pushing the saying that, yeah, hey, he's going to be traded this offseason because the Padres think that it's just too much now. You can't. You've got 3 guys that are making $300 million, and if you're gonna keep Soto, you're gonna keep Soto, you're more likely not gonna get anything. You're gonna get a very low return in the trade deadline next year. If you're out of the playoff race again, they're hoping if you keep Soto, you're thinking we're gonna win the division. We're gonna win the division, but you're gonna probably lose Blake Snell. So how does that work with your pitching staff? You're going to lose Jake Hader. So how's that going to? So there's so many aspects and so many variables that the Padres are looking at. They're going to have to say, is it worth keeping Soto with the hope that we can get this figured out with the amount of talent we have to win the NL West, or move on, use resources elsewhere, maybe try to make a push to keep Snell. Obviously, Hader's probably not coming back, but Snell's going to be the top priority for the pitching staff for them, that you can try to get him in a long term and then say, okay, we're going to try to make this push without Soto and recoup what we've lost and go from there. There's a lot of questions in San Diego. I just don't know if they have the answers for, because you didn't get what you were hoping for out of Soto for what you gave up. And that's a hard pill to swallow for a franchise.
JG, I'm not saying these two things are linked. But the Yankees are saying they're fielding offers for Gleyber Torres, and the Yankees still are interested in Juan Soto. So two questions. One, if the Yankees try to engage a trade offer with the Padres, can you see Gleyber Torres being included in that? And 2, what is the market for Gleyber Torres? Because we've been hearing for about a full calendar year now that the Yankees are fielding offers for Gleyber, and they haven't pulled the trigger on anything. So do you think they're just not getting what they think the return should be? Do you think they're just throwing it out there for future reference? What are the Yankees doing fielding all these open offers? The Marlins have made a solid offer apparently last season, and they said no. So why are the Yankees continuing to field offers for Gleyber Torres and not making a move if they apparently want to move him?
Yeah, I don't see the Padres being a team, because where's Torres going to play in San Diego? You have Bogarts at short, you have Machado at third, Cronenworth plays second base, and you can move him, and you can move Cronenworth maybe to first base, but that's a lot of moving pieces and moving parts, where Cronenworth is probably best at second. So I don't see where Torres fits in San Diego to make that move. And is the package around Torres, is that going to entice you to move Soto to New York with prospects that you're going to want? You're going to need to do a little bit more than that. Maybe a package of Torres and maybe Severino with some prospects. I think that could probably entice San Diego, because you get 2 major league players that fit in. And again, Severino with the potential could be in that rotation. I think that'd be a little bit more enticing than Torres for the Padres. And then you throw in a couple prospects that, just to fill in that deal. But again, if you're San Diego, you're looking at Severino as potential, because he hasn't pitched to his potential in New York. He's had moments where he looks really good. He has moments where he looks really bad. And then he has his moments where he's injured and doesn't pitch at all. So there's, that doesn't really sway you to say, yeah, we're going to make that deal for Soto, with especially the prospects that the Yankees don't have, that it really entices them either. So I don't see that being an option. I know the Yankees are pushing for outfield help, and looking for that bat. Obviously Soto, Bellinger were the two big names right now that the Yankees are looking at. For Torres is a good player. He had a good season this year, batting .273, had 163 hits. He's played well, but he's not the again, for the hype that was around him when he came into the big leagues with the Yankees, and his up and down moments is really it's kind of soured at times of what his market can be. And I think that's probably why the Yankees have held on to him, because they have this higher hope that if there's a team that wants him, they're going to have to blow them away for a deal. Well, they never got that opportunity to say yes to that, because it was never – the teams that view Torres don't view him the same way that the Yankees had for a while. Now I think it's kind of more of like, okay, yeah, hey, he's not the guy that we want to lead, to at least be part of the core of this team. And we need to figure out what's going to be the best for us moving forward. Torres may not be that for him. So what's the market? Mid-level, maybe you can get one top 15 prospect, and you can kind of get a little bit, mid-level prospects in Double-A, but you're not going to get what's been the offers for him so far is going to be continued. You're not going to get a big offer for Gleyber Torres, just because he's not that kind of player that the Yankees were hoping for, and they've held on to him to be that player. And now they're going to swallow the pill and say, yeah, we're probably going to have to sell low and get what we can if that's our opportunity to trade him.
And JG, last thing I want to talk about, GMs apparently, and I hate when they don't attach names to it, but apparently the consensus among the GMs is that the Ohtani thing could play out rather quickly. GMs were polled, and many Major League Baseball GMs see the potential of Ohtani not dragging this out and potentially signing early next month, if not sooner, with whoever his next team is. Do you see the Ohtani thing playing out quickly? And is there a benefit to it playing out quickly? Or wouldn't it make more sense for him to kind of drag it out? Or does he just know where he wants to go and it's not really going to be a competition for his services?
Well, it's already been kind of noted that there's only basically 3 teams, the 3-team race. There are at least 3 teams. 3 to 5 is kind of where he's looking at. So you're not having an open market bidding war. It's you're going to have the teams that are listed, and it's kind of been known. Rangers, Dodgers, Mariners, and Giants are kind of the teams that have been linked to Ohtani more than anybody else. And you can throw out there the media. I know we've talked about this last week. Yankees, Mets, teams that are interested. But it's already been kind of noted what teams he wants. So there's no reason, and kind of what I said, that there was going to be, I know the winter meetings were going to be the target date, and that's kind of been reported was that it was going to be the winter meeting. So that a deal gets made. There's no reason for this to go any further than that, going in deeper into December, because as I said, it puts a whole hold on free agency until Ohtani gets signed. Everybody else is waiting to see what's going to happen, what the market's going to be. That's the bigger thing. He's going to set the market. It's the same thing that Aaron Judge did last year. Judge set the market for the for the rest of the contracts. So they were waiting to see what's he going to sign for. Well, everybody's waiting. What is the number that Ohtani's signing for? Everybody bases off of the big contracts that are out there on the market, and then you're going to say, all right, so player A is decent close to Ohtani, but not to that level. So he's about a tier short. So if Ohtani signs for, let's just say 350, and I'm just throwing a number out there, if he signs for $350 million, well, player A, who's not at that level, but he's at tier B, you can probably get a $220 million contract then. So they're waiting to see. That's why the market is at a standstill right now. Nobody's really made any moves, any big moves, because there's no reason to until Ohtani signs. And I don't think Ohtani, nobody really takes that in consideration in free agency. Like, well, I'm going to take my time because the market's there and it's waiting on me. I think he has an idea. Obviously, again, 3 to 5 teams are the target list, and they're just kind of waiting to see, who's gonna give them what they want, closest to what he's wanting, and you'll be able to comfort. I think Ohtani has a clear idea. I'm not going to say he says he knows, but he has a clear idea of where he's going to go. He's just waiting to see what those teams, and I'm talking about the agent more so than Ohtani himself, or what they're going to offer and what the number is going to be and the full benefits of the contract itself. But he's got an idea what it is, and that's why we've seen only 3 to 5 teams, and really at this point, it's probably only 3 teams. Really, it's a 3-team race. So yeah, once there's no reason to wait deeper into December, deeper into the off season for Ohtani, just because again, it's not a open market. It's 3 teams, and he's going to have an idea really where he's going to go here soon.
JG, always a pleasure to have you on here Monday, Tuesdays, and Thursdays here on the morning show. Thank you so much, sir, and have a good day.
I appreciate it, guys. You as well.
Mo, always a pleasure to have JG dropping the baseball knowledge here on Coffee and Sports, the morning show. But Mo, right now we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we are going to talk New England Patriots, and we are going to break down some of the biggest games from Week 10 of the NFL season. All that's going to happen on the other side of the break. Don't go anywhere. It's Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network.
Hey, y'all, I'm Key.
And I'm Jory, and tune in to Hoop Dreams and Touchdown Queens every Saturday at 5 p.m. over on Sports Empire Network.
And don't forget, also watch us on Roku TV at Northeast Streaming Productions. So tune in.
Welcome back. It is Coffee and Sports. It is the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. And Mo, we heard the rumors heading into Week 10, and you and I addressed this last week, and we both said it was pretty ridiculous. But the rumors were that if the New England Patriots were to lose in Germany against the Indianapolis Colts, Robert Kraft could pull the trigger and remove Bill Belichick as head coach. And last week, you and I said that we didn't really understand where the rumors were coming from, why the Germany game, why the Colts game, why is 2-7 different from 2-8? Why would it happen at this point in the season, especially coming on the heels of apparently him re-signing a multi-year deal with the Patriots? So we didn't put much stock into that, and we haven't really heard anything of the contrary since their loss in Germany yesterday. But Mo, I want to take it from the angle of, when is it time to make a change in New England? And I understand everything that Bill Belichick has done for that franchise. And my goal in this conversation is not to take anything away from Bill Belichick and what Bill Belichick has accomplished. But Mo, let me present you with this, okay? I would argue that despite all of the success of Bill Belichick, he has had one flaw that has followed him for the majority of his career. And that flaw, excuse me, is that he struggles on the offensive side of the ball when it comes to not only finding talent, when it comes to drafting talent, when it comes to developing talent at the skilled positions. So if you look at the years with Tom Brady, it's as you get further and further away for Tom Brady, it's hard to argue that the offensive success wasn't more Brady than it was Belichick. And I get it. Tom's first couple of Super Bowls, they were low-scoring games, and they were really driven by the defense. And if you look at the numbers from those games, Tom played game manager. I will not argue that point. But as the Patriots dynasty, which, again, was 20 years long, a lot happened in those 20 years, Mo. As the Patriots dynasty continued to grow, and the NFL, more importantly, shifted during that dynasty to what it is today, which is an offensive-driven league. If you look back at the early 2000s when the Patriots were winning their first couple of Super Bowls, defense still kind of ruled the day in the NFL to a certain extent. We weren't anywhere near where we are today as far as the offense is concerned. And that shift really did happen during the Patriots dynasty. And as that shift was taking place, I would argue, Mo, that Bill Belichick didn't shift with it. And Tom Brady helped hide a lot of those flaws on the offensive side. Before I let you respond, Mo, I just want to give you a quick list, all right? I'm going to give you a list of all the receivers that Bill Belichick has drafted under his regime as the New England Patriots head coach. David Givens, Bethel Johnson, P.K. Sam, Chad Jackson, Matthew Slater, Brandon Tate, Julian Edelman, that was a good one, Taylor Price, Jeremy Ebert, Aaron Dobson, Josh Boyce, Kenbrell Tompkins, Jeremy Gallen, Malcolm Mitchell, Devin Lucien, Braxton Berrios, who his success never came with the Patriots, it was with the Jets, N'Keal Harry, Jacoby Myers, who is no longer a Patriot, Trey Nixon, Tyquan Thornton, Keyshawn Bout, and Demario Douglas, who is having a decent rookie season with them right now. That's it, Mo. 2002 to 2023. 21 years of wide receiver draft picks. And he had one 7th-round pick, Julian Edelman, who I would argue Tom Brady was finally like, let's go. And we need to make something work around here, because it's not like they identified. And again, you know, I take nothing away from Julian Edelman's career, Mo, but let's be honest. It's not like they identified him early in the draft process. They said, this is going to be our guy. No, they took a flyer on him, and he happened to end up being a pretty darn good receiver. So, Mo, where do you sit on that argument? Because, again, I'm not trying to disrespect what Bill Belichick accomplished. But there comes a point 20-plus years in when you have a track record of not being successful on the offensive side of the ball. Your current team doesn't have a great quarterback. You have no speed. You have no weapons. You have no playmakers outside of your above-average running back. At what point is it fair to look at Belichick?
So I think it's fair. It's fair to look at him now. You laid out a pretty strong case that Tom Brady hid a lot of things or shortcomings when it comes to Bill Belichick's ability to assess and draft offensive talent. There's no questioning that. I think the great thing about Brady is this. What I can always say is he came into there with an opportunity to be the quarterback. He was in a system, and early on, like you said, yes, I agree. He was a system quarterback, but then he evolved and he became the system. He became the system. Everything was built around him, and everything was predicated on his greatness. There's no denying that. And Bill Belichick, great defensive mind, great defensive coach. But like you said, when the league shifted and it became more of a quarterback oriented league, right? A more pass happy league, he never really made that adjustment. He never really looked at the landscape and said, I have to look at wide receivers and go out and get guys that are elite, or look at somebody that would be a number one pick as a wide. He never did that. What he was good at, to his credit, was he went out and he kind of played mercenary. They brought in Wes Welker, right, from Miami, who was relatively unknown. And within that system, Wes Welker put up huge numbers. Mm-hmm. He went out and got Randy Moss, who people thought was done after his stint with the Raiders. And Randy Moss and Tom Brady instantly had chemistry. Mm-hmm. So, and look, don't forget, early on during one of their Super Bowl runs, what did they do? They went out. This is before Brady became the system, and they got Corey Dillon. Yep. And they got Corey Dillon, who was at the very edge of his peak, and he gave them a 1,500 or 1,700-yard season and helped them win a Super Bowl. He was good at putting Band-Aids on some of his flaws. But as far as drafting offensive talent, like you said, it's been his fatal flaw throughout his career. I don't know if you fire him. I do think you have to have a succession plan in place. I think that what you need to do if you're Robert Kraft is have an honest come-to-Jesus conversation and go, Bill, I still want you to coach this football, but I don't want you to be GM anymore. We need to get guys that are looking at the way football is played today, and we need to draft talent for today's NFL.
Yeah, and I think that's, and again, I say that Bill Belichick is part of the problem, and I really think he is. I also think Robert Kraft is part of the problem, because you're allowing Bill to do all this. You are the owner of this franchise. You're allowing Bill to have the say that he has in the draft room. You're allowing Bill to have the say that he has with the personnel. You're allowing these things to happen. If you're Robert Kraft, why not just bring in offensive? I know offensive genius doesn't grow on trees, Mo, right, but bring in some offensive minds to have a different perspective for the offense. Let Bill, if you look at his draft hits on the defensive side of the ball, they are phenomenal. He has found terrific players on the defensive side of the ball, and he's done an even better job at getting rid of those players before they fall off. That was the Patriot way, right? Cut them early, cut them a year early, so you don't have to deal with the decline on the back end.
That's his superpower. Yeah, that's his superpower. He always got rid of the veterans a year or two before they were going to decline. Like I'll give Bill Belichick all the credit in the world. He did something that a lot of GMs / head coaches, they can't do because of the emotional connection they have to players. They go, I think he's got another season left in him. Bill Belichick was like a cyborg. He was like, you know what? I know he's still playing at a high level, but he's 30 and he's coming to a contract year. They move people. That was Bill Belichick's superpower as a general manager.
And in 99% of those situations, Belichick will look bad or questionable for a year. And then the following year, they'd be like, oh, he saw it.
Right.
Got it. He really was about to run out of gas. And he did that time after time after time. So again, when it comes to, it's not player evaluation as a whole. It's player evaluation on the offensive side of the football. Correct. And I get it, Mo. When you are he is a defensive genius, right? When you are that good at one thing, just be that good at one thing. I don't expect you to be that good at everything. Nobody is that good at everything. Do you think Mike McDaniels is down there in Miami cooking up defensive schemes? No, because that's not what he's good at. He's the mad scientist when it comes to the offensive side. Now, do I think he has suggestions for defense? Sure. Do I think Vic Fangio listens? Sure. Does Vic Fangio walk away saying, I have to do that? Probably not. And I'm sure sometimes he walks away thinking, what the hell is Mike talking about? Because that's Mike's room. That's not his place. And there was an interview with Tom Brady 5 or 6 years ago now. Maybe it was a little bit sooner. But he was asked about Bill Belichick and the offensive play calling. And Tom told this story about how Bill didn't understand the offensive lingo, where they had a conversation and Tom was basically ribbing him a little bit. And Tom was saying things that didn't exist in the offense. And Bill didn't realize it. And that's okay, because he doesn't need to be an expert in that arena, but he needs to put people around him that are. Or Robert Kraft needs to put people around him that are. And I think a little bit of this is pride. I don't know Bill personally, but when you take two of your friends that you've worked with before as defensive coordinators and you put them as offensive coordinators, Mo, I have to look at that as pride. You want your people in positions around you. You want people that you trust in positions around you. And I understand it. He's not going to go out and hire a 20-something or an early 30s offensive hotshot, because what does that mean? He's hiring his successor.
Yeah. 100%.
And I get why he hasn't done it, because once he does that, Mo, he's signing off on, this is the next head coach of the New England Patriots, and the quicker we are better, the quicker I'm going to lose my job to that person. So I get why he hasn't done it, and that's why it's not all his fault. That is why Robert Kraft needs to figure out a way to allow this offense to evolve and become better, because you are not going to win football games with an above average defense, which is what they are right now, with an above average defense and no playmakers on offense, no speed on offense, an average quarterback on offense, and play calling that doesn't even bring out the best of what your average quarterback can do.
You're making a great point. I really think you zeroed in on the real problem. It's Robert Kraft. Robert Kraft is enabling Bill Belichick. And I know that we've seen stories in the media how they're not the best of friends. They might not be. But what I can guarantee you is that Robert Kraft has the utmost respect for what Bill Belichick has accomplished for his franchise. And it's hard to tell that coach who's had the type of success that Belichick has had over that run, it's time is up. It's time to move on. We need to hire your successor. You need to focus more on defense. We need to bring in guys who specialize in offense. You need to share power. And that might be the biggest thing, right? It's not just pride. Bill Belichick has total power right now. And I don't know how you go to someone who's had basically he's Teflon, Chris, to where he can do or say whatever he wants, and he's done it for over 20 years. And now you're telling him, Bill, I need you to give up some of that power to a few of these younger guys so we can go into the next era of the NFL and catch up with some of these other franchises, because we own this division for 20 years. And now I'm looking around and we're in the basement. And if we don't change, we'll stay in the basement. It's a conversation that needs to be had. I don't know if Belichick's ready for that.
I don't know if Kraft's ready for that. And I feel like I almost envision it. And I see Belichick sitting in his office and Kraft come in and, he's throwing out pleasantries. Oh, how's it going today? Nice weather. And Bill's just like, get out. Like, that's how I see it going. Or I see him opening the conversation. Bill's like, no. And that's the end of it. Because I don't think Kraft is going to force it on him. I think Kraft wants him to be open to it. And I think Bill's not going to be open to it.
Kraft wants Bill to come to him and go, I think we need to make some changes. Right? He's hoping the conversation begins like that. Like, we need to, you know what? I need to take a step back. We need to make some. Kraft's going to be smiling like, Bill, you read my mind. Like, this is wonderful.
If this is what you want, Bill, okay.
Right. Whatever you want, Bill. What makes you Belichick, I think you have him spot on. I think Kraft walks into this office and Belichick's doing like he does in post-game interviews, like, we're not going to do any of that. We're going to get out of here. and Kraft go, Bill, I need to talk to you about some change. There'll be no changes right now. You got to get out of here right now. I'm going over next week's game plan.
Right.
Get out of my office. Like, I mean,
We're on to Cincinnati, Robert.
Right. Moving on to the next game. We're not going to dwell on this. Like, that is Bill Belichick to a T. I really think that Robert Kraft is going to actually have to have a go-between, go in there and go tell Bill this is what I want to happen. So that guy can get yelled at.
All right, well, let's get into some of the games that took place this past weekend. The Cowboys, as predicted, rolled the New York Giants. I am surprised the New York Giants scored 17 points. I know seven of those were garbage time points. I'm surprised they scored 10 points when it wasn't garbage time points. But like we predicted, DeVito, I forget his first name. Tony DeVito? Maybe. He played. It was garbage. I think he had 12. I think midway through the fourth quarter or towards the end, he had 12 pass attempts for like 37 yards or some nonsense. It's amazing they scored a touchdown with him only having the 12 pass attempts for 37 yards. Saquon had somewhere around 70 yards, but it was an absolute dismantling. But I will say this, Mo, this changes nothing about the Dallas Cowboys. They were going to roll the Giants this week. They're going to roll the Panthers next week. I think if you look at the Cowboys' schedule, they're going to end up with 10 wins before they play their next meaningful game, which is fine. But again, if you can't beat Philly and you can't beat San Francisco, it doesn't matter what you do if you're the Dallas Cowboys. You're going to have to go through one, if not both of those teams, if you want to get to the Super Bowl. So you should have rolled the Giants. You did your job. Hats off to you. You should roll the Panthers next week. This is what you should be doing. But again, you're going to be measured by your playoff success and whether you can beat the Eagles and the Niners. So it is what it is. Good job beating the Giants. Yeah. On to the Panthers.
No, I'm with you. We knew that they would dominate and blow the Giants out. They did. As you said, the fact that the Giants scored 10 points, that stunned me. I was like, wow. And when I looked and I saw, DeVito threw the ball 12 times, I was like, that's 12 more times than I thought he would throw the ball to begin with. I thought his only job would be to turn around and hand the ball off. So I was stunned that he threw the ball that much. The Giants are a dumpster fire, period.
We thought it was going to be a blowout with Seattle. It was not. It was a really competitive game between the Seahawks and the Commanders. Props to Washington after selling off two of their biggest defensive pieces to put together the performance they did. Ultimately, the Seahawks win, which is what they needed to keep pace with the 49ers. But great job by Washington not to completely collapse and still have a competitive game with Sam Howell looking
He played great.
He could be the quarterback next year for this team.
I don't doubt Sam Howell's talent. I think sometimes we have concerns about his consistency.
Mm-hmm.
But don't you often from time to time have that with young quarterbacks?
Sure.
He could. I think he could be the starter. I think you look at Sam Howell and go, if we build up this offensive line, I just think that he has the ability to be the guy. He's just going through growing pains.
Kyler Murray made his return for Arizona, and Kyler looked good. His passing game early was a little hit and miss, but he hasn't played football in a year. Let's not forget that. But the wheels look good. His decision, he had an interception, which wasn't the greatest, but that's always been Kyler's knock. He's going to see things that aren't there sometimes or force balls, and he did that yesterday. But Mo, he led them to a win, and that doesn't happen a lot in Arizona. So one game into the Kyler return, I like what I see.
I was impressed. And look, on the game-winning drive, I don't know if you saw the play. He drops back, and it looks like a jailbreak. The pressure's coming. He spins, reverses, and he's actually running in the wrong direction to build up speed to outrun the defensive players and turn it into like a 25-yard gain. And as that's happening, I go, oh, my God, the wheels are there. Like, to be able to do that, like, he was running in the opposite direction, and he made that work. That was amazing.
He needed momentum. You got to build it up to expend it.
I'm not going to lie. In the moment, what is he doing?
The Chargers chargered it up. Offense looked great against the Lions. Defense was non-existent. Lions, you could say the same thing, but when you win the game, Mo, it doesn't necessarily matter. So I let the Lions off easy because I'm going to say they won a shootout. But unfortunately, when you're the Chargers and you're supposed to have the defense that you have and you're not using it properly, It's just another example of, you look at it two ways. The Chargers defense failed again, and that is Staley's side of the ball. Or you take the other route, which is Herbert was in another shootout that he lost. So either way you want to dice it up for the Chargers, it's not great. Your franchise quarterback loses another shootout. Your defense has another letdown. That's what the Chargers are.
And I'm with you. I watched that game. Justin Herbert, he looked amazing, with the exception for the one pick. But that didn't cost him the game. The fact that it was a shootout, because look, I think Jared Goff is a very good quarterback. But yesterday, he looked like Dan Marino. He was throwing the ball all over the place.
All over the place.
There was little defense in that game at all. Look, I know Coach Campbell hates shootouts, but he'll take the win. I was impressed with the fact that Detroit almost rushed for 200 yards too. Like, San Diego's defense seems to be getting worse week to week. Like, I'm reaching a point to where I don't think they listen to the defensive coordinator anymore. Like, there's a serious disconnect between the players and the DC. And until that gets rectified, and it's not going to get rectified this season, San Diego's not going to make or the LA Chargers, they're not going to make the playoffs. They're not going to make the playoffs.
I called this. I said the Browns were going to beat the Ravens. It didn't look that way for a while.
I'm watching the game. I'm watching the game.
Mo. They don't match up well.
Chris, I'm watching the game, and I go, Chris got this one wrong. Because, the Ravens come out, and they're thumping them.
Fire they came out on.
Yeah, you're like, they're thumping them. Oh, this is going to be a blowout. And the Browns defense, they engage. They get back into it, and the offense starts making some plays. And they frustrated Lamar and got him to turn the football over, especially late on the picks. The pick six was the killer.
Yep.
The pick six turned the whole game around, and you called it. I'll give you credit. Man, every time I pick the Ravens, they lose. I mean, every time I go, you know what? I'm going to give them credit for what they've done. I think they're the more balanced team, and give the Browns credit. They just found a way to win a very good football game, by the way, a very good football game. And Myles Garrett, I know that it's a high-scoring game. I'm telling you, watch the game. He's still a dominant player.
He was everywhere. And Mo, it really sets up an interesting Thursday night matchup this week between the Ravens and the Bengals, with both of them coming off of losses and the rest of their division winning, and all of their division being in playoff contention right now. So it's going to make all of those interdivision games that much more meaningful for these four teams as they go down the stretch. Mo, one thing we were right about yesterday, the Josh Dobbs train, baby. It kept on rolling in Minnesota.
Yeah, man.
Wow, what a guy.
The man just shows up, won a football game, didn't know a soul on the roster's name, and guess what? Now he knows everybody's names, and he's that much better, and they win another game. I love great sports stories. Joshua Dobbs right now is one of the great sports stories.
And Mo, I said, looking at their schedule, the Saints game over the next 4 games, the Saints game was the one I was a little worried about. I think the Saints were their best competition over the next 3 or 4 games. Check it off. That's out of the way. So I see the Vikings going on a run here. I don't know if they're going to catch the Lions because the Lions keep winning, but I see the Vikings making the playoffs. So, hey, Dobbs train, baby.
And he's spreading the ball around, Chris.
Everyone gets some love.
Hawkinson got some, Edson got some. Like, he's spreading the ball around. He's using his legs. I think the best asset about Josh Dobbs I can say is that he would rather tuck the ball down and get a 4-yard play than throw the ball downfield or force the ball. I love that he makes the little subtle things that keep drives going.
Mo, obviously the biggest talking point this morning is going to be CJ Stroud. And the Houston Texans, they knock off the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm very tempered with this conversation because, I saw it all over X this morning. People were making lists. Oh, if these 26 teams could have CJ Stroud right now, they would all take him. And I'm like, okay, that overreaction Monday, that's a little silly. Give credit where credit is due. The Texans are playing really, really well. Mo, they're going to make the playoffs because they're playing a last place schedule. If you look at their schedule the rest of the season, they don't really have anyone on there that you should be overly concerned about. But that being said, as great as Houston has played thus far this season, they've beaten some great teams. They've also lost to the Colts and the Panthers. So you're looking at a team that is beating good teams. They've beaten the Steelers, they've beaten the Jaguars, they've beaten the Bengals, and they also have some dud losses in there as well. And that's what I think this team is. I think this is a team that at their ceiling, they can beat the Bengals. They can go toe-to-toe with Cincinnati. I also think at their floor, they lose to the Carolina Panthers in a game where neither quarterback could really get anything going. And I think that's what the Houston Texans are. So I take nothing away from what they did yesterday, Mo, but my take is let's not let the highs be too high. Let's not let the lows be too low. This isn't a Super Bowl team. And I feel very comfortable saying that this morning. They are not a Super Bowl team. I think they'll make the playoffs because of their schedule, because they're a good team playing a last place schedule. But I still think you're going to see them lose a couple of games this season where you're like, really? They lost to them? And I think that's who they are.
I also think it's a young team with their young quarterback that you're going to see those growing pains, right? There will be highs. There's no questioning that Stroud has all kind of talent, strong arm, can make incredible throws and plays, but there will be games where he'll have a couple of picks, he'll lose a couple of fumbles. He actually lost a couple of fumbles yesterday, and he had a pick, and I give the young man credit. He bounced back from 3 turnovers, and he found a way to lead his team back. So, no, not a Super Bowl contender, but I think that for a first-year coach with D'Amico Ryans, they're on the right track, and that's what I would say. They're on the right track. If they were to make the playoffs, I would say they're ahead of schedule. Having said that, I'm with you. I acknowledge that you have to look at the schedule that they have. They weren't the Eagles, so they weren't going to have a first-place schedule. You kind of success kind of sets you up for tougher competition. Failure kind of sets you up for an easier competition. But I'm not taking anything away from them. They are playing the games that are in front of them. They are winning football games. I think they are a playoff team, but it could be one of those things where they make the playoffs this year, and because the high is so high, they could very well turn around and disappoint you next year. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but with a young football team and a young quarterback, what do we always say about quarterbacks? You go through that first year, even though he's young and he's starting out and he's putting up numbers, the second year, all offseason, everybody's going to go, we got all kind of film on this guy now. This is how we attack him or how we approach him. So I'm excited to watch the Texans play. I love what Stroud's doing, but I would just say be a little bit tempered about the wins or the losses. Just take it a game at a time. They're a good football team, but they're a young football team.
And I'll tell you right now that they play Arizona next week. I'm taking the Cardinals in that game. I think that Kyler Murray and the Cardinals are going to beat the Texans next week. And that's nothing against the Texans and CJ Stroud. I just think they're an up and down kind of team. Like I said, we've seen them 2 weeks ago. They lost to the Panthers. They lost to the Falcons. They've lost to the Colts. I mean, they lose to average teams, to bad teams, and they beat decent to good teams. They're just up and down. So like you said, I think they're going to make the playoffs because of their schedule. I just don't think that this is their year to really start making noise. And that's okay, because if you're a Texans fan, this is great. You are way ahead of schedule. You are predicted to be a 5-win team this year, and you're already there. So love it, embrace it, but let's not get too high on it. Mo, we're going to wrap up today with Monday Night Football predictions. We got the Broncos and the Bills tonight. I'll let you go first.
So the Bills are going to win. and after I say that, watch him turn around and throw 4 picks. I'm just saying. Watch Josh Allen throw 4 picks. 2 of them will be pick sixes. No, in all seriousness, you and I both know Buffalo should win. I expect them to win. But because I do have a soft spot for Russell Wilson, I want Russ to play well. I don't know how you can play well and take a loss, but you can. So I'd like to see him play well. Or more importantly, I want it to be a competitive football game. I'll take that. If the Broncos are in it, and let's say they lose 24-17, that's a competitive football game.
I'm taking the Broncos tonight, Mo.
What?
And here's my reasoning, all right? The Bills should win this game on paper. The Bills should easily win this game, and it's in Buffalo. But here's what I look at. Russell Wilson, if you look at the last 4 games, take the last 4 games for Russell Wilson, the last 4 games for Josh Allen. Who's the better quarterback right now? It's Russell Wilson.
Yeah, probably
Russell Wilson is playing better football over the last month than Josh Allen is. And if you look at the Denver Broncos over the last month as a team compared to the first month of the season, they're a completely different team right now. The defense is playing a lot better. The offense is playing a lot better. Russell Wilson is playing a lot better. The play calling is a lot better. If you look at Buffalo now compared to the start of the season, they're in complete disarray. They can't start the game. They can't start games off quickly. Josh Allen is being a turnover and poor choice making machine. And they have all this adversity that they shouldn't be facing right now. And they're on the verge of falling to 500. I think Josh Allen has a mini implosion tonight, and they lose a 24-21 game because of a late Josh Allen turnover. I could be completely wrong, but that's where I'm sitting.
So do you think the Bills come out slow again, to a slow start again?
I do.
Because I feel like when you're at home, if you don't get off to a fast start with everything at stake, you start feeling pressure, right? It builds. And I think that's when you put too much pressure on yourself. So I am picking Buffalo, but every point you made is spot on, because if they don't start fast, the longer the Broncos hang around, the more the pressure builds on Josh Allen. And you know how that goes. That's not going to end well. So I understand where you're coming from completely.
All right, Mo. Great show this morning. Close us out, sir.
Thanks for everybody that's checking us out in the chat, watching us live. Thank you for everybody that will be watching Chris and I later on. We appreciate you. Check out all the great talent and content that we have at Sports Empire Network. Check out the Empire.
Make sure you join us same time, same place tomorrow morning, where the Bills will probably win by 40. And I'll look silly for making that prediction, but we'll talk about it all tomorrow morning here on Coffee and Sports. It's the morning show here on Sports Empire Network. We will see you in the morning.
I mean, you can see right now, without LeBron, Lakers are struggling.
Let me tell you about a team I hate, all right? I know the Dallas Cowboy fan is here, so I had to make sure he knew how much I hate this team.
I'm ready. I've often said that the people who run baseball, they try very hard to ruin it.
I'm from Brooklyn. I don't have a problem saying it to his face.